Welcome to Intel 454 at American Public University. Welcome to the class and welcome to hopefully your continued success and continued development in the Intel program here at American Public University. Just want to kind of use this YouTube to cover an overview of the class. What this class is it looks at intelligence failure, structured analytical techniques, and the ASAP methodologies, and it applies them to the WMD terrorism set. So there's a lot of intelligence theory that goes into this class, but the practical part is that it applies it to the WMD terrorism case study, which I think again is one of the most difficult problem sets facing our country and facing our law enforcement and intelligence communities. So the objectives of this class, again, determine the trends on the use of WMD by terrorists, look at WMD signatures and forecasting, techniques used in terrorism forecasting, and then apply terrorist forecasting methodologies. So those are kind of the objectives I took from the syllabus. What I'm really, to put it in more cogent terms, what I'm looking for is, for this class, is you can interpret intelligence indicators as it relates to WMD use and movements. Real world scenarios, someone comes up to you and asks you, Syria, WMD, there's WMD use in Syria, is it a threat to our country? And hopefully by the end of this course, you can use the methodologies and the scientific knowledge on WMD and give an intelligence answer on it, an intelligent answer on it, or an intelligence product on that. So, is Syrian WMD a threat? Hopefully by the end of this study, or the end of this course, you can answer that question. Back in Iraq in 2003, there was a lot of questions on WMD use by terrorists that people didn't apply that analytical rigor to, that hopefully in this class you can learn. So that's what we're trying to go with this class, is to be able to look at these WMD problems and apply some analytical rigor to give a cogent answer. And hopefully we get you to think about terrorism, WMD terrorism in a different way, or at least a more cogent way than what you see on the headlines or what you might see on Fox News or MSNBC. So just a quick introduction about myself. I currently work in a place called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA. For those of you who might have worked in DoD, might have heard of it. I'm basically an analyst, red team analyst for DTRA, and I work the WMD problem set for DTRA. So that's I look at this class in that perspective. I've worked in TSA, Department of Homeland Security. I've worked at the Joint IED Defeat Organization. So I have plenty of experience here in DC. And prior to that, I was an Army officer for 7 years, Army intelligence officer. So I can relate to people who are currently on active duty or might have deployed or might be on deployment right now. So products I expect from this course: graded forms weekly. Do your weekly forms, provide insight, provide analysis, use the readings and the lessons in those graded weekly forms. So that's something you'll do every week. In week 3, there'll be an open book exam. Just because it's open book doesn't mean you don't study for it. You will have to study for these exams, so you know what to look for when you're going through your open books. You need to tab your books. But week 3, you have an open book exam. Week 6, you'll have a short, 1 to 2 page terrorism intel indicator list. And then the final week, you'll have an open book final, which again, you'll have to study for. And then a more in-depth research analysis paper based on your terrorist intelligence indicators list. So those are our products. Again, weekly forum, week 3 exam, week 6 one-page terrorist intel indicator list, week 8 research paper, week 8 final exam. So it's not a whole lot of work. I've definitely given more work for some of the other classes I've taught, but there is definitely some products, you know, even there's less papers, but I expect those papers to have a very, very good finish to them. So with that being said, just talking about week 1, defining terrorism, and the old cliche is one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. You know, why do we consider certain people consider Yasser Arafat for the head of the PLO? Depending on who you talk to, he's a terrorist or he's a freedom fighter. Nelson Mandela, he passed away a few months ago. Depending on, again, who you talk to, he's a terrorist or he's a freedom fighter. But we kind of consider terrorism is kind of 4 elements. Sub-state actor, targeting civilians using low-level tactics, meaning bombings, assassinations. You have a political goal, which is what separates terrorism from normal criminal acts. So those 4 elements: sub-state, civilian target, low-level tactics with a political goal. And that's what we consider terrorism. However, there are some problems with that definition. You know, sub-state, we say sub-state actor. You know, what about state sponsors of terrorism? There's certainly state sponsors of terrorism out there. Syria, Iran. Those aren't necessarily sub-state actors. It's just states utilizing proxy groups to achieve their objectives. You know, that is terrorism, even though we tend to think of sub-state as terrorism. Civilian targets. I said earlier, terrorism usually is civilian targets. However, we consider things like the USS Cole, 1999 attack against a ship. We consider that terrorism. The Hezbollah Beirut bombing, the attack on the Pentagon on 9/11. We consider that terrorism, even though that was clearly a military target. So, you know, why do we consider those things terrorism and other military targets not? Again, just something to consider in your discussion boards. Low-level tactics. You know, that's let's just say they use low-level tactics, terrorists do, because they can't afford a state. They can't afford drones and smart bombs and stealth fighters. So we tend to assign that, but that's not always the best way to assign terrorism. I mean, just because you bomb something with an IED, vice dropping it from an F-16, one's terrorism, one's not. You know, that's, I guess, in the eye of the beholder. And then finally, the political goal. That I think everyone can agree on, that if a terrorism uses a political goal, that's what separates it from a criminal act. For instance, the Fort Hood shooting, which a lot of people consider terrorism, that's separate from the Newton, Connecticut shooting, where all those kids were killed, because one was more nihilistic, one was more mental issue. The other one at Fort Hood, he had a political message that he wanted to reinforce about U.S. involvement in Iraq. So that, you know, just wanted to kind of cover that issue for this class. And if there's, I look forward to your points on the discussion board. And if there's any problems or issues, please let me know.